Today I want to help you pick the very best civilization in Rise of Kingdoms, whether you're starting a brand new city or you're looking to optimize as you work your way toward the end game, or you want to fight in the end game. And I have actually used a majority of the civilizations in the game. As of this moment, I'm at 155 million power. I've been playing the game for over 5 years, and I've got a lot of really great advice to share based on my experience actually using these civilizations and pulling down over 16.6 billion kill points. So stick around in this video for everything you need to know about picking the right civilization for you. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and as I mentioned in the intro, I have used an overwhelming majority of the civilizations in the game on one account or another, and I'm going to speak to the pros and cons of using each of these different civilizations. Now, you can use the timestamps in the description, which I would recommend to navigate to whichever portion of the video you're most interested in. We're going to start by talking about the best starting civilization. We'll then go into the civilizations you use to grow your account, and then lastly, we'll talk about what actually is the best for fighting other players. Now, before I jump into all of that, it is important to mention the context. I do an updated version of this list roughly every year when a new civilization lands in game, and we just had the Greece civilization announced, which I will cover in this video. But the reason I'm mentioning this is in part because things have changed since the last time I made a civilization video. The main changes right now are around the speed with which you get to the end game. And this is going to dramatically change the starting civilizations you might choose. Now you get to end game commanders faster. And not only that, but epic commanders become irrelevant faster. So this means that we want to narrow your focus at the start of the game. So when we talk about starting civilizations, my recommendation for you is only going to be one civilization. And just do this, don't mess around. The answer is China. Now, China is powerful because of several reasons, actually. First of all, you get a really great starting commander. And this is the most important thing when you're picking a starting civilization. You will get more sculptures of the commander associated with that civilization. And Sun Tzu is the best epic commander probably in the game. He's extremely versatile. He can be a great commander in the field or for defending your city. So getting extra tokens of him while epic commanders are still good is very, very critical. So for that reason, China is your number one pick. And although you don't really care about the special unit for your starting civilization, you do enjoy the benefit of troop defense for all troop types. You get 5% AP recovery, which means you will be able to level your heroes a little bit faster because you're able to do more battling for PvE content. And also the 5% building speed is really good. The 5% building speed at the start of the game, when your goal is to push to City Hall 25, is exceptional. Now, at some point, you will push your way into the mid game. And when you get to the mid game, your goals are going to change. There's going to be one of several things you want to do. It's either going to be pushing lots of research or training lots of troops. So in the mid game, I'm going to give you maybe 3 options for things you could do that work extremely well for powering up your city. So let's start with the best option. And the best option, once you get into sort of the full economy mode of growing your city, is going to be Germany. Germany is something you will switch to, and there's a number of ways that you can do this. You can switch by spending 10,000 gems, or even better is you get a civilization swap token. Now, there are a lot of events that show up that will give you a civ swap token. I actually don't happen to have any in my inventory right now, but if you wanted to get one, not only will you get one for free at about City Hall level 10, but also your Alliance shop can be stocked with a city swap token. So, for example, I can scroll all the way down. The restock fee is 650,000 of this gold currency. It'll cost you 2 million silver currency. It ain't cheap, but it's way better than spending gems, okay? So you can use this civilization change token to switch civilizations. Now, you don't want to be changing all the time because that gets too expensive, but once in a while, it's worth changing. And once you shift gears from, hey, I've done the majority of my building, that's when you can switch gears to Germany when you're saying, hey, I'm actually going to spend a ton of speed ups training troops. So Germany gives you a 5% troop training speed boost, which is amazing, and a 10% action point recovery boost, which gives you that PvE, player versus environment value. That's the green stuff that you'll see in the upper left. You want to spend that down to level up your heroes, get speed ups, and more, okay? So Germany is going to be the pick for economy. I am Germany right now, okay? And if you're deciding, do I switch just for training a small amount of troops? The answer is that, like, if you're gonna train, I think the number was like 1 million T5s, that's a break even. So if you were gonna train just 1 million T5s, it would be worth switching to Germany and then switching back to some other civilization after you're done to go back to fighting, just for perspective. So what I'm trying to say is that Germany is really, really good. It's so good you would even switch to it temporarily. And the break even is about 1 million T5 troops. Now, I know a lot of people watching this video are not training T5 troops, and your goal with Germany is to stick with Germany for a long time, okay? Leverage the troop training speed in the off season to grow your account, or if you're in KVK and you're in earlier KVKs, it's still a fine civilization, not the best for fighting in the field, but many people use cavalry and the special unit's fine, okay? From here, the next best civilization for economy that we need to talk about when you're growing your account toward T5 is going to be Korea. Now, this is a civilization that whales should use, and they should use it for a short period of time when they are switching to doing a ton of research to push toward tier 5. I'm talking about using like 1,000 days of speed ups. You should switch to Korea, leverage the 3% research speed. Remember that in this game, the second you queue up your building or your research, it snapshots all of the building speed and research speed buffs you had at that moment and locks them in for that building or that research. So this is not a civilization you want to live in for a long time. You want to switch to Korea if you're a whale, gonna spend 1,000 days plus of speed ups, bang out all that research, and then switch to something else, because there's no long-term benefit of living in this civilization, whereas others passively are benefiting you by giving you, for example, AP recovery, or this next civilization we're going to talk about is Spain. Spain is another fine option for growing your account once you're done with your buildings. And why is that? Spain gives you a 10% experience gain boost from battling barbarians. Hey, 10% is not much, but at the start of the game, the experience gain and the experience crunch is very critical. So switching to Spain after your City Hall 25 or even Academy 25, which I know takes much longer to accomplish, is an interesting idea, because then you can start to get the benefit of bonus experience as you are leveling up your commanders. The other thing that you get here that is really good is 20% resource production. And this is a civilization that's often used on farms that have high level resource production buildings to leverage the passive resource gain from 20% resource production. I would say that most people probably never go for Spain. And what you'll often see is that people start with China, and then at some point they switch gears to Germany. And when they're ready to fight, there's really only one civilization to choose. The one civilization that most people should be using for fighting is the Ottoman Empire. Now look, most people don't actually fight intensely in the open field. And if you're not actually pulling down in the realm of like 500 million to 1 billion kill points in a KVK, you probably don't even need to switch to a combat civilization. You can just stick in your economy-based build. But if you're actually serious about fighting in the field, Ottoman is the best open field civilization. There are so many reasons why this is the case. First of all, 5% march speed is very good. There are other civilizations that give 5% march speed, but the other thing you get is 5% skill damage boost. Now, the meta in the end game is actually using lots of high skill damage commanders. you don't bring pretty much any commanders at all that just sit there doing primarily normal attacks. So what that means is that Ottoman benefits pretty much every march you have in the field with skill damage and march speed. And that's why this is the best civilization, even if you aren't primarily an archer player. And one thing that's critical that's happened in this game is that the commanders in the endgame are so powerful that although at one point in time I used to advocate for having mostly infantry or mostly cavalry or mostly archers, now I think an even blend of the different troop types is the way to go. So although there was once a time where you wanted to specialize in one troop type or another, we've really fully left the realm where that's the best way to go. I'm not saying that, look, if you had like 3 marches of infantry, 1 of cav, and 1 of archers, that it would be bad. I'm just saying that it's best to have a blend. You definitely don't want 4 infantry or 4 cavalry marches, or 5 infantry or 5 cavalry or 5 archer marches, and none of the other troop types, because the commanders in every troop type are just too powerful right now. So you need to have the blend of troops, okay? So Ottoman Empire with a blend of troops, or especially if you're an archer player, is the way to go in the open field. The other option that works fine, but doesn't hit as hard, is to go with France. And the advantage of going with France is that you get a 20% hospital healing speed boost. Now, this does less than you think it would, because most people simply aren't going to fight in the field enough to leverage the benefit of this healing speed boost. They'd be better off just sticking with Germany and enjoying some extra troop training speed. But for people that actually fight in the field, we're talking like you're pulling down 500 million plus points per KVK. You start to actually accrue some pretty good value by going with France. Now, any proper whale, and most people are not whales, so I just want to convey this sentiment because I know I'll get some comments about it, but any proper whale will tell you that you should be Ottoman Empire, okay? But if you want to go for the value-based play and save some speed ups, you can go with France. And for people that are not spending like crazy, France is a fine choice. My restart account, which is 95 million power, occasionally dips into 100 million power, and then I lose that power. I use France on that account, and it's great. The infantry special unit's very good. I have 3 infantry marches, okay? I made that sort of specialization into legendary equipment before they'd even sort of made it really clear that you need to have all troop types represented. I was maybe going to go for 5 infantry, marches on that account, but then, dude, archers became way too good. Cavalry became way too good. You couldn't skip any troop type. So all that to say, France is a fine civilization. The health boost benefits all your different troop types, and the hospital healing speed is good. The wood gathering speed is basically irrelevant here. Those are your 2 open field civilizations. Now you may say, wait a minute, but what about Rome? And Rome does have 5% march speed, but you would rather have either the 20% heal speed over here, or you'd rather have the skill damage and march speed over here. So there's really no situation in which you would go Rome. The only time in which legitimately people were choosing Rome in this current endgame state that we're in is if you were playing Ark of Osiris League and you were an infantry garrison captain. Now, at this point, people don't actually use infantry to garrison primarily because cavalry are faster and there's good cavalry, and the march speed is just so critical in Ark of Osiris. It's insane. Now, if you were, however, an infantry garrison in Ark of Osiris and you were serious about pushing in League, I think Rome would be the pick, but we don't have an infantry garrison that justifies that at the time of this recording. I imagine that will change, however. The other civilization that people are going to be like, wait a minute, but wouldn't you consider using this in the open field, is probably going to be Vikings. And that's really not what this civilization is for, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. It's fine in the open field. The counterattack is good, but we'll get there. What I want to talk about now is rallying. And if you're rallying in Rise of Kingdoms, there are 3 civilizations. You pick the one associated with the troop type you use to rally with primarily. If you rally with cavalry, you must be Arabia. That is strong language and intended as such. Look, the 3 civilizations we're about to talk about give you 5% rallied army damage. If you are rallying flags, forts, players, you are doing it wrong if you do not use one of these 3 civilizations. For cavalry, it's Arabia, 5% damage dealt by rallied armies is amazing. If you're using archers, the civilization is Egypt, okay? 5% rallied army damage, and the stat associated with this is boosting archer attack. And if you're rallying with infantry, let me show you Greece. Greece gives you 5% rallied army damage and also 5% infantry health. So you pick the civilization associated with whatever you're going to be rallying with primarily, so you get the 5% of extra stats associated with that troop type. You also have the special unit, which matters only a little bit, but also you get that rallied army damage. Now, technically, you see it's just rallied army damage. It's actually not cavalry rallied army damage or archer rallied army damage. So as long as you're one of these three civilizations, technically, I'd be okay with you rallying with any troop type. It's better if you stick to the one associated with your civilization. But really, if you're rallying and you're not using 5% rallied army damage, you are really doing it wrong. And I mean that from personal experience. I launched a few rallies, didn't have it, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, you really notice the difference of 5% all damage. It's crazy. That's 5% more normal attack damage, okay, to the thing you're directly targeting. That also means you're doing 5% more counterattack damage, and you're doing 5% more skill damage. All damage is really, really good. Now, from here, we can talk about garrisons, and let me jump back to the PC version. I think your number one garrison choice right now, especially if you're infantry, is going to be Viking. The counterattack damage here is really good. Now, if you're not garrisoning with infantry, and it's possible that, hey, in the current state of the meta right now, archers are really good, then the civilization you want to use is the Ottoman Empire. This is true if you garrison with archers. It's also true if you garrison with cavalry, because the 5% skill damage is not troop specific. So this is really good for both archers and cavalry. And my prediction at the time of this recording is that our next cavalry civilization is going to be good for garrisoning and fielding. And I predict that because we just don't have a good cavalry garrison situation. We really don't. I think the 5% skill damage over here is better than the next best cavalry thing you can do, which is Byzantium. Byzantium gives you 5% cavalry health. Now, at this point in the video, we've covered the best starting civilization, the best economy civilizations. We've really covered the best war civilizations for rallying and garrisoning and fielding. So what I want to do now is cover the weird scenarios in which you use other civilizations in the game. And there are a couple, like Byzantium, that we need to talk about. And the weird situation where you use Byzantium is if you know your city is about to get rallied. Now, this is an interesting one because if you're in the end game and your hospitals are max capacity, the 15% hospital capacity gives you something like 30,000 extra hospital capacity. I'd have to actually do the math to run through that. But what's interesting is that if your city is going to get rallied, it's all about survival at that point. And so doing some extra damage over here, some extra skill damage, is not as good compared to just having extra hospital capacity. And the amount of gems you save by getting, at least 30,000 of your T5s additionally worth of hospital space instead of dead is definitely worth it, especially if your hospital is going to overflow multiple times in a situation where you get imprisoned and swarmed. So Byzantium is actually the civilization to choose if you're in a very, very, very bad situation with your city in the end game. That's pretty much the only time I would choose Byzantium. Some cavalry players have kind of played around with it for the special unit and the health. And if you are like a big cavalry player, you could do that. Others just stick with Arabia because they also have a rally benefit. And although you don't get the hospital size, the cav attack is good, and then you also have rally damage, right? Those are the two strategies I've seen. The other civilization you can use for weird situations or unusual situations is Japan. This is giving you just a small boost to gathering speed, 5%. It's almost not even noticeable. If you had a farm account, you could do this. And many farm accounts actually just use Spain for the passive resource production. But if you actively gather, really actively gather and log in throughout the day when your gatherers come home on your farm, Japan in that situation would be a fine choice. The other civilization that I haven't talked about, and there's only actually just one left, that's going to be Britain. Now, Britain has a troop training speed. So you may be like, bro, why would you not use Britain? Why would you always use Germany? And that is because Germany has the 10% AP recovery. Action point recovery is really, really good. That is literally giving you speed ups and resources of value and experience tomes, right? So that's super valuable. Britain doesn't have that benefit. They give you ally garrison capacity. So what does that even do? It makes it for reinforcing your city only. You have 20% more maximum capacity, which, like, your city is almost never getting reinforced anyways. And rarely is it hitting its maximum capacity such that this extra 20% literally does anything. The only situation where this is valuable is like what I do on my farm. My farm is way too high power right now. I need to kill off all the troops, but it's about 80 million power. And so what I'm going to do in KVK is I use Britain. I enjoy the passive troop training speed. I train a ton of T4 troops on my farm, and I port on top of a flag. The extra rallied garrison capacity or ally garrison capacity is actually good on my farm at that point because you can put, I think, close to like, I want to say it's like 3 million troops into my city, 3.2 million troops into my city. And people are reinforcing into the flag. And that's actually valuable in that one weird situation only. Okay. And that covers pretty much every civilization. Now, if you enjoyed this video and got value, do me a huge favor, consider subscribing to the channel and throwing a like on the video. Like I said, I've been playing this game for over 5 years, and I play the end game very seriously, so keeping an eye on the meta is very, very, very critical to me, and that's what I communicate to you in my daily videos about Rise of Kingdoms. So consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and if you're looking for perhaps some of the best low sculpture cost investments in the game, that's 5511 legendaries. I'm going to have a card in the end screen in just a moment that talks about those best investments. And if you're looking for an overall tier list evaluating all the commanders in the game, I've got you covered. I'm going to have an investment tier list that reviews the best legendaries to invest in. Card in the end screen in just a second.